Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Eerie International, episode 493 this week. My name is David from the United States.
I'm Andi from Germany.
And I'm Dave from the UK.
And we are reunited this week to talk about Clown in a Cornfield, 2025 American slasher film that features clowns and cornfields, so it lives up to the title. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the episode. If this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. We are a horror podcast recording from 3 different countries at the same time. Talking about horror-related stuff in a wide variety of mediums. This week, the medium of film. We're going to be getting into that a little bit later, as I mentioned. Wherever you found us, you can continue to find us, more than likely. Eerie International is the place to search for all of the prior episodes and interviews and everything else that we've done. We're also on YouTube as well. Dave's been adding the episodes there. If you're more of a YouTube person, so check it out. We're also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. Instagram's usually the most active. And then we also have a email address. If you'd like to send us some longer form thoughts, feel free to do so at eerieinternational@gmail.com. And we actually have an email from our friend Elio. So let me pull this up here. Hey, Eerie boys, hope all is well. Okay, wait, hold on, actually. Before I start reading this email came in on May 20. I don't know. That's fine. That's not doxing, I guess. It came in on the 20th. So it came in Monday of this past week. Had we announced the new episode yet?
Yep, we had.
Yeah,
we had. Okay, I wasn't sure. I when I first saw the email, I was like, "Holy fuck!" Elio watched the movie we did this week through pure happenstance.
He watched it quite some time ago.
Oh, okay, got it. That's my bad. All right, back to the email. Hey, Eerie boys. Hope all is well. Things are going good on my end. It's the end of the school year with less than a month left, so that's fairly exciting. I'm taking my first summer off in 9 years where I'm not teaching summer school, so I'm fairly excited about that. I recently watched this week's movie topic. There, he says it right in the first fucking sentence of the email, which I didn't read. So I'll save that for last and let you know what I think. However, I did see a few movies, but 2 I really wanted to talk to you guys about. I'm an episode behind right now, so potentially you talked about these. First up, Obsession. I enjoyed this flick, but not as much as everyone else. I think the one reason why it absolutely has to be watched is Andi Navarrette's performance. Absolutely spectacular, possibly the best performance in a horror movie I've seen in a very long time. I gave it 3.5 stars because it's fairly generic plot, but I also think I was a little harsh on it. Fairly typical, careful what you wish for story, but at the same time, I'm really impressed that most of the people involved with this film were in their 20s and had the dark, messed up ending, and that it had the dark, messed up ending that it had. My biggest gripe is there is a scene at the beginning of the movie where the writing is so bad and the dialogue is so unbelievable that it sounded like the writer has never heard anyone speak before in their life. It took me out of things. Next up, Tape Face from 2024. This just popped up on YouTube and I saw it getting some hype. It's really fun. Low budget, grimy, but brutal and effective and unsettling. Only an hour watch, but I really think you guys should check it out. The director liked my Letterboxd review, so that was cool. Maybe someone y'all can have on the show. And then, well, not last up, almost last up before Clown in a Cornfield. Cult 2013. This was a Japanese found footage movie written and directed by the guy who did Noroi the Curse. We did an episode on Noroi the Curse, right? Am I remembering that? Okay, I thought so. I enjoy his style, enjoy the footage, and even though it's cheesy and low budget, I find them fun to watch. And then final entry here, Clown in a Cornfield. I recently started to read through all these books. I have a lot of love for this series. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's violent, fun. It's a good time. I thought the movie was great, straightforward, to the point, likable actress. All of it was fun. Can't wait for a sequel if we get it. Elio, as always, thank you for writing in. It is a genuine thrill and joy when we hear from you and what you've been watching. We hope you're doing well and that everything with the school year wrapping up goes smoothly for you. Yeah, as mentioned before, listeners, if you want to send us emails, feel free to do so, eerinternational@gmail.com. Okay, let's get into the stuff that we got into this week here. Dave, kick us off. You called an audible midway through. Lead us into it.
Yeah,
what
apologies.
Did you do this week?
Apologies.
No, you're good. I just saw it.
So yeah, I was going to talk about if I could get it finished, a film that I'm watching, but come back next week for that. Spoilers, it's Death of a Unicorn. But as for this week, I wanted to talk very, very quickly about the fact that remember I was doing Dungeons and Dragons? I'm still doing it. We've moved on to our second campaign now. We finished the Dragon of Icepire Peak a couple of weeks ago. And our next campaign is going to be based on something which is very thematically appropriate for this podcast. We're going to be doing The Curse of Strahd, which is vampires, werewolves. It's all set in a kind of Wallachia type location, so it feels very kind of Castlevania-ish. And we played the first session yesterday, and it feels like it's going to be a pretty good one. We've got a couple of returning player characters and a couple of new ones. One of them is a really cool kind of... So here's the thing: the member of the group that is playing this character said that they wanted her to be almost kind of mistaken for a hag, but she's not a hag. She is a mixture of a paladin and a druid, but she's very old and kind of and like
crony.
Oh yes, and the way they're playing them is absolutely peak, just brilliant. It's bringing all kinds of hag vibes, and I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, this isn't the signal that I'm going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons every other week. This is just me saying, hey, look, Dungeons and Dragons can be straight up horror as well. And
I loved the Strahd stuff. I haven't played it in proper D&D, but when I first started getting into tabletop board games years and years and years ago, like as an adult, where like that new, I don't want to say new, but like role to play and geek and stuff, like that stuff was really starting to, like, at least in the US, popularize board games on a larger level. They had a couple. There's 3 or 4 of them now, but at the time there were only 2, and it was a Dungeons and Dragons tabletop board game, like not like actual role-playing stuff, but an actual proper like board game with tiles that you're placing and everything else. So it had like light D&D elements involved. You had a character and a stat sheet. It was all pre-made stuff, but we loved those games. And one of them was Curse of a Shardalon was the first one we played a lot, and then they came out with Castle Ravenloft, and that one we played the most, and it was the best. Like what you described, Castlevania, like all that stuff. I was so into that. And then I saw recently they did this new stuff with the new edition, and it's all so cool.
Yeah, that was the other thing that I was going to mention was it's too rich for my blood at the moment, but I'm thinking I might pick it up at some point. They've released a whole new expansion for Ravenloft, which is compatible with 5.5e, which is what they're now calling the 2024 version of the game, which I actually prefer because it's less of a mouthful, and people understand what you're talking about when you call it that. So, But yeah, so that is what we're up to, and like when we get into the really meaty stuff, I might bring it up again, but this isn't going to be a bi-weekly feature of the show going forward, just so that everyone is not worried about me wittering on about my random library-based shenanigans every other week. But yeah, so next week I'll be talking about Death of a Unicorn. Spoilers so far, mostly positive. So yeah, but more about that next week. So we'll move on to one of you fine gentlemen. What have you been up to this week?
Let's throw it to you, Andi. What'd you get into?
Oh, I'm still reading Icelandic crime novels, which, of course, they're not in the horror section, but these books are very dark, let me tell you. So last week I told you about the first book in the Hulda series by author Ragnar Jónasson, first book being called The Darkness. And I've since read book 2 and 3, which are called The Island and The Mist, respectively. So these are the 3 books in the Hulda trilogy. These books came out in 2015, 16, and 17, respectively. And then in 2024, so several years later, he released a 4th book with this protagonist called Hulda, and the book is also called Hulda, and I'm reading that book currently. I'm more than halfway through that book. not to alienate you from that series, but also to be open about my findings. It seems like only the first 3 are available in English.
Good to know.
It seems like Hulda is not available in English yet. And I also checked out from the library the first book in the follow-up series that is about the male protagonist that follows Hulda after her retirement, who takes over her position. It seems like that book isn't available in English either. But as you realize, these first 3 books having come out in consecutive years, starting from 2015, and then Hulda being released almost a decade later than the first book. These first 3 are the core series, and these are available in English. And they might even get better and better, in my opinion. So I enjoyed the first book very much. I wouldn't have read the other books if I hadn't. But yeah, I tore through these books, which is very unusual for me, but they are very, very readable. They're not very long. So from my experience, just when it comes to translating books from English to German, the German language takes up more words, so these books are thicker than English books, so I would assume that the English books have even fewer pages, and all these books are under 400. They're between 330 to 380 pages in the German editions. Also, interestingly, which is how I got to researching the availability of these books in English. The first 3 books in the German editions are translated from the English translations. And then the 2 books that I have now are translated from the original Icelandic, which led me to do the research and realizing there are no English versions of these books. So yeah, they are great. They are Nordic noir in their darkest. These are not feel good books, but they're still so much fun to read and so interesting in the way that they are told and in how the author structures these books. He jumps around from several time frames to several characters, and in the end everything comes together and you get the whole picture. It's like puzzle pieces that he gives you one from the right corner, and then he gives you one from the left corner, and then he gives you one from the middle, and so you never realize how everything works together, and in the end you see the whole picture. So they are really good. I enjoy them very much. As I said, I've been reading almost the whole day today through the 4th book, which is even under 300 pages in the German edition. And then I will go from there and read the next one. So yeah, Ragnar Jónasson, the Hulda trilogy, The Darkness, The Island, The Mist, still highly recommended. And then one thing that is actually about horror. I don't know if you're familiar with the video essayist Maggie May Fish. She has been around for quite some time. She releases on YouTube and on Nebula, just like Patrick Willem does. And she semi-recently released a video called Investigating All Her Fault Horror. So she starts out the video with the example of the latest Resident Evil game, Resident Evil Requiem, where you play 2 characters, a new female character and an established male character. And she realized playing that game that the female character is always saying, "It's all my fault," and "I'm sorry." And the male character never does that. The male character is always the strong guy, and the female character is always blaming everything that's happening on herself, although she has nothing to do with Umbrella releasing a virus or whatever is happening in that game.
Yeah, I'm looking at the thumbnail for the video right now, and immediately I'm like, yep, talk to me, smile, like all these movies that have that exact same thing.
Exactly. That's the startup point is the Resident Evil game, and then she switches to the movies that she actually wants to talk about, because she says she feels like she kind of discovered this mini trend of all her fault horror. And the 3 movies that came out in the same year, I believe it was 2022, was the Hellraiser reboot, Talk to Me, and the first Smile movie. And then she also talks about the second Smile movie because it has the same thing. And all these female characters, something supernatural is happening to them, but throughout the whole movie, they literally say these sentences, "I'm sorry," and it's all my fault.
And also, unfortunately, at least through these examples of the thumbnail, all written and directed by men. Like another thing, which is like, oh, great! Like this is a compelling argument, and I haven't even opened up the video yet.
And she also stresses that she likes these movies, so she's not condemning these movies, but it's just something that she realized, that she recognized, that she discovered, and it's such a weird thing that all these three movies came out in the same year. Not too long ago, and since then, Smile got a sequel, and then the same thing is happening in this new Resident Evil game. So worth watching this video essay. I would recommend it. Maggie Mayfish. I've not seen many of her videos, but she does good stuff. I like her.
She also has I don't know exactly how it fits on the channel because I haven't watched the videos, obviously, but there's some sort of loose David Lynch series called Lynchpins, I just noticed. So I will be watching this
She's
channel.
done various things. I think on Nebula, some of these are even on separate channels. I'm not quite sure. She did a series on, I think, sexuality and gender in movies. She had a season, several episodes of a Pee Wee Herman style variety show, something like that, which looked very interesting. I've only seen the trailer, but yeah, she also does these media analysis videos, and so yeah, I would recommend it. It's not too long. I think it's about half an hour or so.
Oh shit! There's a 40-minute video just about Tar. I love that movie so much, and I can watch essay after essay on Tar. Anyway, sorry, I'm excited about this. I just subscribed to her
talks about
channel.
Tar in the All Her Fault video as well.
Oh, cool. Okay.
No, sorry, I'm confused here. I watched a different video by Thomas Flight about The Shot, and he talks about Tar.
Got it.
Also a good video, nothing to do with horror. He talks about editing and Blender editing versus The Shot. I'm not gonna explain that, but yeah, it's very possible that I watched these videos on the same day. So anyway, so yeah, Maggie Mayfish investigating All Her Fault horror on YouTube for everyone, and on Nebula for those who are subscribed there. And that's it for me.
Cool. I only have one quick thing. I wanted to play more Reanimal this week. I wasn't able to get to it. So to follow up on that from, I think it was last week or the week before, but I did get into one thing that I absolutely loved, and it's very, very specific, very weird. Won't be for everyone, but I think for the people that it is for, it was one of those things that when I saw it, I immediately was like, oh, this is just on every level my kind of thing. Like, the music, the aesthetics, the humor, the horror of it, like all of it resonated with me in a big way. But it is very particularly strange. It's called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. And it is British. So let me stop there and check in with our local British guy. Have you ever heard of this, Dave?
It's not ringing any bells, but maybe once I start hearing more about it. So
I normally don't do this for stuff I've gotten into this week. I usually just do it for our main topic, but I am going to do it here. Wikipedia describes it as a British adult puppet comedy horror web series. So it says it's notable for blending surrealism and dark comedy with psychological horror and musical elements. Its production is diverse, combining puppetry and live action with styles of animation including stop motion, traditional animation, flash animation, claymation, and computer animation. So it's this was introduced to me by a friend. It was originally 6 episodes, I think, on YouTube that they put out. They had kickstarted different ones. It's a British I want to call it it's like an art collective, I think, called This Is It, or Is This It, or something. Is the name of their This Is It is the name of their production company. And I've read briefly about them, briefly about like kind of the history of the show. They at one point were approached by BBC or Channel 4, one of those places over there, to do it, and they turned it down. Like, they could have gotten a lot of money and exposure, but they were also, there was a quote from one of the 3, Becky, what's her last name, Sloan, where she mentioned something along the line, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of like, we knew that if we did it, we wouldn't be able to still be weird, or as weird as we wanted to be. So it's definitely
BBC then.
Yeah, okay. So it's definitely that kind of project with those kinds of creators, where it's a like very artsy out there sort of thing. So anyway, I realized later that I did kind of know about this production because I've mentioned Dropout on the show before. We've talked about Dropout at times here and there. It's not horror, it's comedy streaming service. But there is some overlap with horror. Some of the people involved over at Dropout, one in particular, Josh Rubin, I think is his name. I could be blanking. I'm pretty sure that's right though. He is a horror filmmaker. He made Hard Eyes, and he's plugged in with that crew. So there's some overlap in terms of comedy and horror, but it's primarily comedy. They last year, I want to say, or the year before, had their first like licensed property that they did on their streaming service that wasn't an original Dropout thing. And at the time, I remember watching the trailer and being like, oh, this looks cool and out there and weird. And it was Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. But I hadn't pieced that together. So after those 6 episodes that they did for YouTube, they then did an actual TV series that was a little bit longer. And all of that is now on Dropout. But at least the first 6 episodes, the web series, which I watched this week multiple times, honestly, is on YouTube. And yeah, man, it's hard to explain. Like it has the kind of look and vibe of something like a Sesame Street or a Pee-wee or a kids programming sort of deal, but like you can tell things are off kilter right away. Everything's very bespoke, so like all of the music is original and the songs, but then down to like the materials. So like even in the opening shots of the first episode, there's all these close-ups of stuff in the room, and everything is made out of like felt and different textured materials, stuff that you can't just whip up quickly. Like it's clear that on every level they spent a lot of time into each of these episodes. They're dense. They are very weird. So they start off, sort of usually the rhythm to each episode is something along those lines where it's like a Sesame Street kind of kids variety program sort of song that is being, some inanimate object in the room is teaching these 3 puppet characters about it. Usually, like in the first episode, it's like a notepad that's singing about creativity. But then as you get through the episode, things start to be sort of off kilter and weird, and eventually start to devolve into like very surreal horror shit. So it's still funny, and it's still it's not a total, I don't know. It's such a unique blend. I'm so into everything that they've done with it. There starts to become an overarching mythology that starts to appear with these characters, and like maybe what's going on a larger scale that you're not aware of when you first start watching the episodes. But it is some like hardcore, like artsy, out there kind of stuff. So it won't be for everybody. I would imagine we might have listeners that will pull up a video and within seconds be like, "This is not for me," which is okay. It's weird, but I think Amazing Digital Circus is not similar, but there's an overlap with that too in some ways, in terms of maybe some of the tonal things where you have these like bright primary colors and different concentric shapes and like different aesthetic elements that are there, but then there's an undercurrent of something a lot darker that's going on, that's at play. So yeah, I got so into this week. It got to the point where I would be working and would just like play the playlist of the episodes to kind of listen to, because I've started to notice stuff in the songs that show up early on that have payoffs like 3 episodes later, or they're setting certain things up, but you can't tell that because it's so subtle how they're, anyway, it's one of those that you can like really kind of fall down a rabbit hole with and get into. And I haven't even watched the TV show that they made, so I'm only on those first 6 web episodes, but very unique, very different. And I think if you're somebody who really likes and appreciates this kind of weird shit that isn't going to be put out by anywhere mainstream, typically, like Dropout makes sense for them, but even for Dropout, it's kind of an out there property, and they're a quote unquote much smaller streaming service, so it's not either, they're not even really mainstream either. So anyway, very weird, but I think for some of our listeners, especially ones that are into some of the wackier shit, I did want to mention it. And yeah, man, I've gotten so into it. It's also one of those things where like so many elements of it as you're watching it, whether it's the music or the comedy beats or little pieces of animation, where you're just like, oh, they they clearly spent so much time. Like, this would have been such an easy joke to not do this with, or to not do at all. And it just is such a like handcrafted sort of thing, both I think literally in terms of like the puppets and the sets and everything else, but just like the overall vibe of the show feels very much like that. If there's ever anything this week, let me put it this way, that I've seen that could not be a stronger element for generative AI bullshit, it's anti AI stuff. It's this. Like, you can't make this an AI. Like, this is something that a bunch of people had to spend a lot of time, even more so than other productions, to really kind of fine tune and do on a, creative. I'm being a little pretentious here, but it gets me excited on like a human creative level of just like, we're getting together to make this art that we're passionate about, that we're going to put a lot of time and effort into, and it's going to be polished, it's going to be good, but it's also going to be weird as fuck. Like, it's not for everybody. We're not trying to make a ton of money and get it out to like the widest possible audience either. So I get fired up about stuff like that. And yeah, this week I was all about this series, so I definitely wanted to mention it and throw it out there.
They remind me not only of everything that you've said, like Sesame Street and stuff like that. They also remind me of a couple of puppets that fairly often used to appear on a YouTube series from a guy that the channel's called Tech Moan, and it's just a northern fella from the UK that likes hi-fi equipment and stuff like that, and will just do random videos once a week about, all right, here's a hi-fi from 1980. And he's one of those style of YouTubers where like the content might not even be what you're interested in, but he's just like a really affable bloke that you would happily spend time listening to. And so every now and then he would do like these little skits with a couple of hand puppets, and it would be like, if there's something really stupid about a product, then he would lampoon it later on with them talking about it. And yeah, it's like, I think he took his original ideas for that from like Avenue Q. The fact that it's like a more adult-facing version of Sesame Street. But yeah, I'm looking at the notes on this, and the fact that it did eventually get a 6 episode run on All 4 and Channel 4. So I was right. The BBC would have it wouldn't have been the BBC, because they wouldn't allow them to be as weird as possible, which is ironic because The Mighty Boosh was all over Channel BBC back in the day, and that was probably the weirdest TV show that anyone has ever made to date. The weirdest funny TV show, I should say, because Channel 4 did eventually get Noel Fielding to make a couple of series of a show called Noel Fielding's Luxury Comedy, which was definitely luxurious, but certainly not a comedy. It wasn't at all funny. But yeah, like this seems like the sort of thing that would be on Channel 4 late night on like a Friday night when the students are coming in from having been at the pub and just want something weird to watch. And the fact that you've mentioned, and I've read here, the fact that it starts off quite cool and then it gets a lot darker and a lot more surreal. Like as somebody that always enjoyed Too Many Cooks, this is the kind of thing that I tune into. So yeah,
that's a great point of comparison. Like it's definitely scratches the same itch as a lot of the Adult Swim stuff I've brought up in the past too. The infomercials, Too Many Cooks, the one with the what's the unedited footage of a bear attack, or I forget the name of it.
Oh god,
like there's all these like, it's got a crazy name, but it's another kind of like one of those classic weird dark comedy, psychological horror kind of things. I mentioned to my friend too, Wonder Chosen, that was on MTV back in the day, had another thing kind of like that. It was more in the comedy realm, but blending some of that stuff. So yeah, there's definitely some precedents that if those things ring any bells for you to where you're like, oh, I was into that, or it's definitely worth checking out. I think it's worth checking out regardless, just because of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, because of the level of just like tactile creativity. I think that if you have any sort of inkling towards practical effects and set design, stuff like that, a lot of the stuff that we talk about every week in whatever movies we're getting into, whatever, I think there's a baseline sort of enjoyment that you can, and appreciation you can pull out of it right away, just because it does look so cool and different, and like clearly a lot of time has been spent making it. But your mileage may vary when it comes to the comedy and the horror because it does. They're both weird, and then they also start to meld in a weird way. So if you're not on board for that part, then it wouldn't be a fun watch all the way through. But I think at least the very first episode, they're just numbered. So Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is also the name of the very first one. It's a song about creativity. So if you see a notepad starting to sing about creativity, that's the right one. If you watch that episode and it got a little bit too weird for you or out there, I would stop there and just enjoy the episode that you got to watch. But if it does pull you in any way, it is kind of a good sort of like little sampler of like what the tone of the show is and all the ways that it will only kind of double down from there. Yeah, because the scope of it does change. And by the end of the 6th episode, you're getting into like pretty deep mythology and lore shit about the world, and there's still some of the same framework, but it does start to wildly kind of veer off course. So I'm very curious to see what the TV show is like, because the point that you start at with the 6 episodes and the point that you end at with those 6 episodes is a big gulf. So I have no idea what the TV show is like yet, but yeah, it's great. I definitely recommend people check it out. And again, it's all on YouTube for free, so you can at least watch that first one and see if you like it, see if it's your thing. And then, yeah, if you have Dropout, it's all in there too, apparently. Okay, that is it from me this week, so we can dive right into our film. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, we are talking about Clown in a Cornfield, 2025 American slasher film, directed and co-written by Eli Craig and his co-writer Carter Blanchard. I don't know. It's based on the 2020 novel by Adam. I've always said Cesare, but is it Cesare? I don't know if either of you guys know how to pronounce this dude's.
Yeah, I think it's Cesare. It's the Italian
Cesare?
pronunciation.
Okay.
At least that's how I remember it from listening to Brian Keene's podcast, Adam Cesare. But I might be mistaken.
Okay. No, that sounds right to me. Starring Katie Douglas, Aaron Abrams, Carson McCormick, Kevin Durant, and Will Sasso. This did get a theatrical release here in the U.S. back in May, and then I want to say Shudder had it after that. I think they helped put it out too. I'm pretty sure there's a Shudder logo at the beginning.
Yeah, it says it was distributed by Shudder in the wiki notes. So,
all right, cool. Yeah, I don't have Shudder anymore, so I couldn't remember if it was. For some reason, I was thinking it was part of their like actual lineup, but yeah, they just put it up. And yeah, it is based off of, as we've mentioned, the novel. There's a series of these novels. I know there's at least 3. I think there's 3. And continue on. I read the first, I probably mentioned it on the show. I read the first maybe 5th of the first book last year sometime, and I liked it. It didn't blow my mind, but I liked it well enough. The books are YA, or at least the first one is. So it was a little edgier. There was like swearing and stuff, but it was a YA book. I got it in the YA section, whatever. The movie's definitely rated R. Yeah, I think when I had I try to do a culling of my books, unread and read alike, every once in a while because they start to get out of hand. And I think that was one that I was like, I liked this, but not enough so I didn't end up finishing the book. So I had a little bit of it there. The opening of the book, the intro prologue, is different than the one in the movie. There's also opens up with like a prologue. The one in the book is the incident that's mentioned in the movie with the quarry and his sister drowning, all that. That's the opening of the book. And then Quinn's getting to the new neighborhood. All that's the same is what I read. So anyway, from that point on, was totally brand new for me as well. Let's get into what we thought overall. Andi, kick us off. What did you think of Clown in a Cornfield?
I was well entertained. I had suggested this movie because I was looking for something light and not too long, and that's exactly what I got. So yeah, no, I had seen the trailer whenever the movie came out last year, whatever. It played at Fantasy Film Fest. That's when I watched the trailer. Didn't watch the movie back then. Popped up on Netflix recently, and I thought this looks like it could be a decent, fun, entertaining movie. And if not, it's just barely over 90 minutes long. That doesn't sound too bad. I loved Tucker and Dale versus Evil by the same director. Sounded interesting enough. And I thought I was well entertained by the movie. I thought it didn't overstay its welcome. I think this is one of the rare movies that got better in the second half. oftentimes movies like this end up or start out interesting, and then they get less and less exciting. This one, I think, got better as soon as they infused more comedy into it. So I thought some things were really funny in the movie. I loved the performance by the lead actress, the protagonist, the female actor. I loved watching her. She was great. So that was a big plus for the movie. There were some things that were really surprising to me. Spoiler, I did not know that there's more with the one clown in this movie. And
one of my sorry, I just mentioned this really fast to interrupt you. David Sims, who writes for The Atlantic, his review on Letterboxd cracked me up. He didn't give it a great review. It was like 2 stars or something. But his review was 1 sentence, and he was like, the rare instance where it could have used less clowns, which made me laugh.
I love that reveal as soon as a second clown shows up. But then immediately a bunch of clowns show up. So it's not it's not misleading in the sense of, oh, there's 2. No, there's an army of clowns. I mean, which also kind of gives away who these clowns are, because who else could it be than all the adults? But still, and I knew it's based on a YA book, so that also, I don't know, gives you a bit of a sense of what the tone might be for this movie. It doesn't go very deep with many things, which again you might also expect from such a movie that's only 90 minutes long, or 92, whatever. And so I think my expectations were met and were on the correct level, so that I had a good time with the movie, and I would watch a sequel if they made one, especially if I think Katie Douglas is her name. She's in it again. I would love to see more of her, because she was a real standout to me. What did you guys think?
Dave, take it away.
I'm very much on the same line of thinking as Andy on this one. I thought it was an entertaining movie. I liked how it looked a lot. I thought it was really well shot from that point of view. It's a movie that takes place a lot at night, and I think they did a really good job of lighting it in a way where it wasn't too dark. I always will refer to the first Alien versus Predator. No, the second. Sorry, Alien versus Predator as being an example of why you really need to light your film accordingly when you're filming at night, because otherwise you're just watching a bunch of really dark shit happening on screen, not knowing what is happening. I think the reveal of the clowns was really well done. The same as Andy, like when you get all of them turn up, and then like it does become very obvious what's going on, and I like that they don't wait too long to reveal that is the case. I don't know where I stand on the "we are Gen Z, we don't know how anything works" gag, because on the one hand, I've seen enough videos of a bunch of like younger millennials and Gen Zs being given cassette tapes and a recorder and saying, how does that go together? And they can't figure it out for love or money. On the other hand, I don't know, it just kind of felt like a cheap gag after a while. Like the phone was funny, but then it was like, I can't drive stick, which, I mean, fair enough. Like nobody can drive stick, but I don't know. It felt like it was maybe slightly overplayed for me. And then the entire movie, I did like the fact that the movie then circles round to that and uses it as kind of like the motive for the entirety of what's going on. Like the fact that these kids turn up and they're no good and they don't understand how things should be done, and so we kill them all. But yeah, I feel like there's a but there, but I can't think what the but is. It's a fun film. It doesn't, it doesn't struggle to hold my attention. It doesn't hang around longer than it needs to. There are some weird decisions made by characters, which I absolutely accept because of the type of movie that it is. The only thing about this movie that I didn't like, and I have done my research and found that this is the case in the book as well, so spoilers for anyone that doesn't want to know the ending of the book or the film, Arthur Hill just drives away and nobody fucking cares anymore. Like, the moment that he's out of the... this is Carson McCormack's character, the guy that runs the corn syrup factory and tries to kill his son, Cole. The moment that he leaves the screen telling his son that he'll see him in hell, that is the last that anybody even thinks of mentioning him, or, you know, and I'm not asking for, and I'm forgetting the exact wording of the Simpsons meme, but it's the one where I think they get Homer into the writing room for a TV show, and he says, "These are the rules for this show. Whenever Poochie isn't on screen, we should all be asking, where's Poochie?" I'm not saying that Arthur Hill should be this film version, like the filmic version of Poochie here, but he is the big bad, and it would be nice if the guy that escaped and got away was actually referenced at least a little bit in the remaining minutes of the movie. I get that there's the music box callback at the very end, but it just seems like everyone moves on with their lives. Everyone's perfectly happy. You know, Dad's running for mayor and Quinn's moving away to college. And it's just like, are none of us concerned about the homicidal maniac who convinced an entire town to take up arms against their children? You know, it's a minor grievance, I do admit, but it's still one that bothered me, to the point that I actually rewound the movie for the last 10 minutes of it to see if the last clown that they ran over might actually have been him, and I hadn't realised. But I looked back on it, and it's just a random clown, and there was no need for him to dress as a clown because he was already dressed as the Joker. So, you know, I like that face makeup on him, actually.
Yeah,
and it had me thinking, if they want to do another live-action Joker, I'm not entirely convinced that they shouldn't give it to Carson McCormack, because he did interesting things when he was on screen with that face paint on. There's certain things he was doing with his eyes and stuff.
I think you're mixing him up with Kevin Durant, right?
I am. I'm terribly sorry.
Carson McCormack is the son.
Yeah,
yes.
Carson McCormack's the kid.
I am very sorry to both Carson McCormack and to Kevin Durant. I should
just
know
making
better.
sure I didn't miss something.
Yeah, I should know better, but I'm quick glimpsing Wikipedia to make sure I'm getting the names right, and I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm not going to fix that in post. People can hear me being an idiot in real time.
Yeah,
I don't
we got
care. So yeah, no. Kevin Durant should, I think, be given some consideration if they're going to bring the Joker back at some point in live action, because I know it's not going to happen with the Batman, because they've already decided who they're going to have in that role. But I think he did a really interesting job in that last little section of the movie. The monologue was really well delivered. I've always liked him as an actor. I remember he played one of the heroes in
Strain.
Yeah, that's it. You knew where I was going, Andy. Thank you for being my friend. The Strain. He was like this kind of hard man, Russian immigrant character who was like the group's muscle, and he was fucking fantastic throughout throughout that series. I really loved that character. He should get more good guy roles, but I'm not complaining that he did this bad guy role at all.
Yeah, he usually doesn't get the good guy. He's got the like mercenary thing nailed down. Like, he gets cast as mercenaries a lot. That's the first time I ever saw him was in Lost. I think he was a mercenary that shows up on the island in season 2 or 3.
Okay.
And then like in that Abigail movie recently, he was a mercenary again. Like, he's always some sort of like, yeah. But he can be really funny. Like, he's got like a weird sense of humor to him that really works. Like, he's not an unattractive guy, so like he can do those. It's not like a character actor thing where you're just like, oh, you're destined to be like a weird henchman the rest of your life. Like, you've got such a cool, unique look. But yeah, he does end up in those roles a lot. And then he also, I don't want to say this after I just said he's a good looking guy, because this other guy is not good looking, but he does have a weird uncanny resemblance to Elon Musk at times.
Yeah, there is that.
There was that when that came out. I remember, I think I told you guys that story on the podcast. We saw a trailer for Abigail when I was seeing another movie with Sean, and Sean legitimately thought it was Elon Musk in the trailer at first. And I was like, no, it's Kevin Durant.
And thank God it was, because it made for a much better film.
Of course.
So yeah, I did enjoy it a lot. I mean, it's got its issues, but there are some fantastic shots. Like one which I told myself I was going to remember to bring up, and so now I'm going to do so. When the 3 remaining girls are in the cornfield, and they're being stalked by some clowns, including one that's got a chainsaw, which ends up being used, and I think it's the girl. I can't remember any of the characters, the main characters. I remember the main characters' names. I don't remember the actors' names, but I remember, obviously. But all of the supporting characters, they kind of like meld into one names-wise for me. They didn't do a great job of establishing, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm so-and-so. But at the end of the day, like, it's a movie. They shouldn't be like making it super obvious that this is this character, and she's the prom queen type, and she takes videos, and she's very much into YouTube, and her name is this, and we're going to call her this multiple times to really kind of just stamp it into you. So I don't remember their names. But the girl that was complaining that she was going to be the next to die because she knew her 80s movie stereotypes, which I found ironic because the first member of the group to get killed was the black guy. So do you know your tropes? Are you just... I don't know. But she is really kind of freaking out. So she's letting out all these noises. And so Prom Queen puts her hand over her shoulder around her mouth.
Yeah.
And then she starts hyperventilating. So Quinn puts her arm around her shoulder and over her mouth. And at this point, I'm kind of like, okay, rule of 3. Someone else is going to have to cover her mouth now. And I was not disappointed to see a clown just reach down and round and cover her mouth as well. And her reaction, honestly, I agree wholeheartedly with what Andy said. Like, I could watch Katie Douglas for days. She was a really entertaining and engaging main character. You could immediately tell she wasn't your typical girly girl that was just going to scream and shriek and shrink away from things. Like, she had some balls to her. Even if she can't drive stick, but and I think this is where it comes from. The whole thing about the joke about Gen Z being like, we don't know how to do this, we don't know how to do that, we don't know how to do that. It kind of came to a head when they all get into that VW bug, and she sees it's another stick shift, and she turns to her dad and she says, please just take over, I can't do this. And it felt like they were just somebody that was in charge of writing this script has a Gen Z kid and was just like, they're always giving up on shit and I'm not having it anymore. And so he just kind of gives her an impromptu driving lesson on, you know, how to dump the clutch and run motherfuckers over. And, you know, if every driving lesson was that way inclined, I think a lot more people would learn how to drive manual transmission, honestly. So, yeah, overall enjoyed it. A few little nitpicks, but honestly, like, for the amount of fun I had with it, I'm willing to overlook them all. And much like Andy said, if and when a sequel turns up, because again, I'm aware that there are, or I was aware because you guys have already mentioned it, there are other books out there. I knew there was at least 2. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with any sequels if they come their way. I wouldn't put it quite up there with what was that Netflix series, Scream Street or something? Fear Street, yes. Yeah. I nearly got there. I'm kind of circling the drain of knowing what it is without actually going down the plug hole. I don't know if it's up to the standard of Fear Street, at least in my mind, but I think it has potential to be considered alongside it as a good example of a kind of young adult transitioning into an adult film series that can make a few sequels to itself. So we'll see how it goes. But I certainly would watch another one. David.
Cool. I am a little less positive than you guys, but not way less. I think a big part of it for me is that I probably will need to rewatch it at some point, and I don't mean in a paprika way where I'm like, there's so much here. Like I didn't have enough eyeballs and brain power to catch it all the first time. But more so because I think I've given it a little bit of an unfair assessment in terms of the humor. I think I don't disagree with what Andi said. I think in a lot of ways it got better with some of the humor, but also at the I don't know. This absolutely could have been a me thing. It could have been one of those things where I just like wasn't clicked into the right frequency from the jump. I did feel like some of the comedy that shows up later wasn't really established. Like the tone wasn't established early on, or I don't know, even maybe in the marketing. There were jokes definitely throughout the movie, and that's why there were things that you were saying specifically, Dave, about some of the different gags or whatever else, where by the time they hit in the movie, I was like, okay, that's fine, but like we're in a different movie now. Like it's what had kind of been set up as. Like at the beginning, the first chunk of the movie to me felt something more akin to like, I'm trying to think. Definitely not Tucker and Dale. Definitely not like the Final Girls, which I think by the end of the movie, it's closer to something like that, or maybe even midway through. But at the beginning, it feels like it's going to be more like maybe one of the Fear Street movies, like you said, Dave, especially the newer one, the one that's not part of the trilogy. Yeah, Prom Queen. One of those where it's like it's a slasher. It's harkening back to certain tropes and eras. It's also, in certain ways, much more modern and is having movies kind of like Freaky or Happy Death Day. Like it started off feeling to me kind of in that realm where there's humor to it and there's comedy, whatever else. There's references or like topical sort of things happening, but the horror is still kind of there, and that's the balance. Whereas with this, it gets to the point where there are gags in it where I was like, oh, this is so fucking goofy, but I wasn't opposed to it. I just I guess had a bumpy ride getting there and like tuning into the frequency. Whether that was the movie being inconsistent with it, whether that was just me, I'm not totally sure. But by the end of it, it shook out to be something that I had fun with. But there were definitely times along the way where I hadn't quite snapped into what they were doing yet, or again, maybe they just didn't do it super well. And I had some reactions to jokes that probably watching it a second time, going into it knowing what it is, I would find funnier. But the first time, there were a few different moments where I was like, "What the fuck is this movie? What are they doing?" And there were definitely a lot of moments. You alluded to this, Dave, where they would make choices and decisions that even for tropey slasher stuff, there were a handful that I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like it was like so kind of egregious and ridiculous that it then started to veer off into that kind of humor territory again, where it's like, okay, there's really no horror here. It's just kind of comedy with like, a horror framework or whatever. The hand over the mouth thing. I mean, I thought that was funny, but that was another thing where like how would that even work? There's no, from a blocking perspective, it doesn't make any sense. So it's one of those things that it's just like, you've got to be on board for the joke. The joke is at the expense of the joke. There's no way for that to realistically work. Same thing in that same sequence of that girl getting hit with a chainsaw when they're running through. There's like all these things where if you think about it for even a second, you're just like, it doesn't make any logistical sense. But also the movie that it is, it's not really the movie to do that for. The other one for me where I think it started to transfer over in my head where I was like, okay, I need to reframe how I'm watching this, was the part where her friend gets stabbed with the pitchfork. Then she apologizes to her friend and takes the pitchfork out to stab the clown. Yeah. And then her friend is like, I hate you, Quinn. And then the clown is like, me too. And they both die. It's like, it's funny, but I think by that point I thought I was in a totally different movie in some ways in terms of the tone. So it was a bumpier ride for me. I liked Tucker and Dale versus Evil quite a bit back when I saw it. I've seen it a couple times, but it's been years now. That one from my memory has a much goofier sort of comedy hybrid tone from the jump. It's built into the conceit of the movie, obviously, in that these two guys are not bad guys, but they keep accidentally killing these kids. So it's got a funny hook right away, and kind of maintains that. This one, I felt it took a longer time to get to what the overall tone was supposed to be. I thought about Thanksgiving a lot too at certain points, where you have a small town and their own sort of holiday and history, and the adults being part of a plot and the kids, having a similar thing. But that also is another movie that has a tonal thing that they're trying to nail that's very specific and different, where it's more of a horror slasher and has some comedy in it, but the comedy can be very goofy. Obviously that one has an Eli Roth, fucking patina or whatever you want to call it over it too. But Anyway, I had a fun time with it. I would definitely want to watch it again at some point down the line, maybe a Halloween, revisit or something, because it definitely has all of those vibes going for it. I think if you are into clowns, that's a big that's a big hook right away, because it's a very clown heavy movie, and masks and masked killers with various weapons, all that kind of shit. So yeah, I definitely had fun with it. It just took a little bit longer for me to kind of tune in with what they were doing, and that could be for any number of reasons, up to and including me watching it by myself. I think that would have been something probably I would have adjusted a lot faster had I been with someone else and, interacting with it and reacting to things in real time with someone else and their reactions and everything else and adjusting to that. But yeah, it was fun. I also agree about Katie Douglas. I thought she was great. I thought the cast in general was pretty good. There were definitely, again, some things along the way, tonal stuff where there were line deliveries and things where I was just like, what I don't fucking understand that decision or choice at all. But again, might be some shit that when I rewatch the movie at some point, it'll make more sense in the context of what they were going for. The only other thing I would say that I was a little, I don't know, I won't even get into this. There were some things I saw, Jacob Knight, who was it it was some Birth Movies Death person I followed for a long time. His review talked about that too, where it was like some of the meta stuff, or like, I think that we're now in a like post horror like era where like the postmodern horror thing of Cabin in the Woods was 2012, I think 2011. So we're significantly far away from that point now, and we've had a lot of movies that have like riffed on Cabin in the Woods, which is a riff on all these tropes. So we have this like cannibalized sort of thing at times. Like if you're making a slasher movie in the modern era, you're usually doing one of two things. You're either subverting and playing against all of the tropes and trying to find a new angle. I mean, we have like that's I feel like a lot of the movies that we had recently, Happy Death Day, Freaky, that kind of stuff, like are playing into some of those things. Or it seems like the other route is to be like a Terrifier or something where you're going, okay, this is a slasher. We're gonna fucking make the shit out of a slasher movie. Like, this is gonna have the gnarliest kills. Like, it's gonna have all of these things that people watch slasher movies for. So there have been many movies post Cabin in the Woods that are trying to straddle some of that line in the middle with slasher movies, and I think it's a tough thing to pull off, because unless you have something really sharp and biting with the commentary or with the meta fictional aspects or whatever else, then you're not really doing anything new that Cabin in the Woods and some of these other copycats have already done. But you're also having to play with existing tropes for a subgenre, being the slasher one, obviously, and horror too. So there were at times with this one where I was like, you can't really have your cake and eat it too with some of the stuff you guys are trying to do. But it's also a little bit of a nitpicky kind of thing. I think I kind of need to get to a better baseline of just appreciating it for the weird mixed match of tones that it is. But yeah, I'm blathering on. I had a good time with it too. It just took me a little bit longer to get there. And in some ways I think didn't land quite as well across the board for me, but rewatch might help that.
It might do. I do agree. I think horror is in an interesting place because of the fact that, unlike a lot of other genres that I can think of off the top of my head, horror seems to be the one that is really kind of sentient of itself, and it's constantly trying to reinvent itself in a way that romantic comedies just don't do. That regular comedies tend not to do. Sci-fi doesn't really bother. I think horror is so preoccupied with the format of the story that sometimes it can forget to just embrace the story it's telling and almost like be just more confident in its own ability to, regardless of whether it's the person that you think it is that was the killer all along, or like you don't have to throw a twist in there to earn the grace of the audience. Basically, like, the story should justify itself. And I don't see many other genres, if any, off the top of my head, and now I know you're both going to end up coming back with like 8 different examples each, and I'm going to be like, fuck, you're right. But I don't see many other genres sitting there thinking, well, we did post sci-fi, and now we're doing post sci-fi, and now we have to reference all of the stuff that was done before, but we have to do it in a new and original way. And what if we do this, except that, I mean, I suppose technically like sci-fi does do that in a way with some movies where it's like, well, the aliens are the good guys, and humanity was the peril all along, and things like that. But really, I'm not sure if sci-fi has or any genre has gone through such a period of inner reflection as horror seems to have done over the last 20 odd years. But it's, I think that this movie in particular, I like the humor in there. I think sometimes it can be a little bit not jarring. It's not quite that level, but certainly like that the humor can seem to come out of nowhere occasionally. As much as I like the shot and I like the joke that I mentioned about the 3 of them covering their mouths and then the clown doing it, did it need to be in there? No, it really didn't. It kind of ruins the tension of the moment. But also, like, do I want to see someone getting run through with a chainsaw? Abso-fucking-lutely. I wasn't too worried about the logistics of it, because I was like, they're running really quickly. They're in a cornfield, so they probably can't see much. You'd hear it on tick over. Like, that's the logical loophole that I have to jump through. But other than that, I was like, yeah, she got run through with a chainsaw, and it looked fucking gnarly. But I don't know, like there was some humorous moments that I thought worked really well because they felt like humorous moments that belonged in the situation where they happened. I'm thinking specifically of when they're all in the are they all in the shed hiding? Yes, hiding from the clowns. And is it Rust? He makes his triumphant return and then says a bunch of shit to Cole, and it becomes very, very obvious, if it wasn't already obvious to the audience, that the tension between them is because they're both gay, and Rust is very much at peace with that, which plays against the typical kind of point of view that most people have about rednecks. And Cole is not sure about it yet, and that's what caused that friction. And all of the girls in there are just like, oh, like all at once. And like they didn't need to explain it to the audience because the audience already knew. And I got it. And it was a fun little aside because everyone coming to that realization all at the same time. It was well delivered, and I thought it was comedically subtle enough that it's not an obvious joke, but it was a moment of levity, which we've mentioned multiple times at this point on this show. Like, comedy and horror work so well together because they lighten the load before you get your next shock. I don't know that this movie has that many shocks that need the levity to be raised in order, or in order for the effect of the kill to be really kind of like at its most effective. But I didn't mind it being there. I think it's one of those ones where everyone's got their own mileage with the amount of comedy that they can accept in a movie. I'm perfectly happy to see comedy wherever possible. That's just me. But yeah, I admit to the fact that at times during the film there was an incongruity, if I can say the word, incongruity. There we go. Between, I'm just trying to use big words to sound smart, everyone. Like, this, I know this. Let's just accept it and move on. There was a little bit of a incongruity between the use of humour and where it was in the film. Sometimes it felt like we've got this really good joke, we need to force this in somehow. Let's just do it here and get it done. But I enjoyed it. Doesn't mean everyone else has to, but its mileage may vary.
I enjoyed that moment a lot. The moment, the realization that there's something kind of has happened between those two, or at least was about to, and then Cole was uncertain, and because we had that moment before when we learned that he pushes all the girls away, he kind of girls fall in love with him, and then he doesn't follow through, and then there's this reveal to the characters and to the audience, and I thought it was very well done, and so to me the humor didn't stick out as negatively at times as it seems to have done for David. I didn't feel like it was so over the top. Even that moment when they're playing with the head, which is a moment that in other movies could be too much for me. A bit more on a scary movie side. But I don't know, for some reason here it didn't bother me. It felt like it had been established that these kids are making these movies and they're pranking each other all the time, that it kind of made sense that they would think, and they were expecting to be pranked. They were expecting a thing from the guys, and they hadn't seen the guys in quite some time, and so it didn't feel too out of the blue for these characters to expect this to be a prank. I rolled along with it. I liked the moment just in the beginning of the movie when the guy follows the girl into the cornfield and he steps into this huge footprint, like in a monster movie where you would find this big,
like, what the fuck kind of shoes are you wearing?
And here it's this clown shoe, of course. And I thought that was fun.
I like that.
And so I don't know. This I think is not the kind of movie that you can go on too long about and analyze. Could point out moments that you liked and that you disliked. Overall, I think we're more or less on the same page, and I think I would argue David was correct when he said if you watch it with a few people, or at least with one person, with the people of Germany. No, with not on your own. You can still watch it on your own and enjoy it, but I think it's totally more fun if you watch it not on your own, because it is that type of movie. You don't necessarily need to lock in too much. It's not Midsummer or Hereditary or something like that. That changes you to the core and that makes you ponder life. It's a movie just to have fun for 90 minutes. And in that regard, I think it's very well done. The director has done things before that we liked, so he seems like he knew what he was doing. What else is there to say?
One more thing.
Not much.
I've got one more thing to say, and that is because I'm just skimming through the plot synopsis just to remind myself in case there was anything that I overlooked, and there is something I overlooked. Possibly one of my favourite deaths in the movie, and that's when Sheriff Dunn gets a cattle prod down his throat and just starts bleeding from his eyes, and like that character, like absolutely hats off to Will Sasso.
With a shockingly great Southern accent, like I
wouldn't know, honestly.
Well, I say shockingly great. I'm not like an expert on Southern accents by any means, but I do notice when they're bad. I feel like I can catch it when it's off.
You've heard me do it often enough.
I think part of that too, my dad's family's from the South, and so like I would remember my dad picking up on accents feeling off, and so it probably stems from that. But so Will Sasso also being like a comedian, and like he was one of the Three Stooges in the newer Three Stooges movie. Like he's not at least that I've seen, like not usually a serious dramatic actor. Like it would have been such a prime opportunity for him to really lean in, and he does. Like the accent's thick and heavy, but it's not like it. I kind of worked. I was surprised. Like 4 sentences in of him talking, I was like, God damn! Did Will get a vocal coach? Like this is a dialect coach? Like this is pretty good.
I genuinely like. I'm not massively familiar with Will Sasso. It turns out I've seen him on WWE TV a long time ago when they were promoting the Three Stooges movie. Because I remember that being a thing when they had the guest host era.
He was. I think he was on Mad TV. I'm pretty sure. I think he's one of those.
That's what it seems to be.
Crew.
Yeah. But I couldn't tell you what his accent was because I can't remember hearing him talking naturally. Funnily enough, there was a video of him doing Macho Man impressions on YouTube that I skipped past the other day. Maybe I should have gone back and watched that because I do love a really meaty Macho Man impression from time to time. But like, as far as I was concerned, he was just like from the South anyway. But
yeah, he's pretty good.
He did something which I absolutely love from actors, and there's not many that can do it that make me where I don't think, well, you're probably just a scumbag anyway. And it's when you get an actor and they are just able to ooze creepiness on a level that makes you want to call child services because they were acting around children. And like, I think him, and I forget the name of the actor, so I'm just going to look it up really quickly, but he was a police officer in Gothica. He actually, spoilers for Gothica, a 23-year-old movie, ladies and gentlemen.
A movie that for probably, I would say, for most people, only ever even hear about because you bring it up on the show sometimes.
Pretty much, yeah.
A pretty forgotten movie.
Yeah. Okay, so the big bad of that movie ended up being a sheriff by the name of Bob Ryan, played by John Carroll Lynch, who is a character actor. Yeah, so he's a character actor who...
He's Arthur Lee Allen in Zodiac. He's a pretty...
He's in Fargo. He's done a bunch of stuff. But he's a great character actor who, when he's given the opportunity, can play scumbags like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And it's just like, actors like that, I watch, and I'm a little bit kind of... Not starstruck, that's entirely the wrong word, but it's almost like they steal all of the oxygen from the scene, and not in a bad way, but I'm just like, I'm watching them and I'm like, oh, you absolute scumbag. Just the way he was calling Quinn sweetheart and things like that, I was like, oh, you condescending prick. There's something not right about you. Like, genuinely, there's something that I don't like about you, and I don't know what it is, but when I find it, I'm going to hang it over your head for the rest of your screen time. And,
I know what you're saying though, because it is like not starstruck. It is a kind of awe when actors are able to pull you into that place so quickly. Like I always think of oh man, I'm blanking on her name now. But the first time I ever saw her, she's one of the cops in Hot Fuzz. She's the only female cop at the station.
Oh, Coleman.
Yeah, Olivia Colman.
Olivia Colman. Yeah, I was going to say she's massive now, but. I remember seeing, so by the point I'd seen Fleabag, I'd seen Olivia Colman in plenty of other stuff, up to and including her in Broadchurch, which she is like,
oh yes,
so sweet and like a very kind of like morally straight character. She's a mom, like has a family, like
heartbreaking ending of that. Yeah,
you fall in love with her in that role or whatever, and then in Fleabag, within minutes of being like seconds of being on screen, you're like, I hate this person more than anyone I've ever encountered in my life. It's crazy, like how much and that specific acting thing where they're just able to access something where on like an animalistic human level, your like fight or flight kicks off, or you're just like something's wrong. It's such a crazy talent to have.
There's a couple of Doctor Who actors that do that as well. Matt Smith and David Tennant both are just amazingly also talented at just flipping the scumbag switch and just becoming just the most awful human beings alive.
Oh yeah.
I watched Thursday Murder Club yesterday, and David Tennant plays such a character in that one.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, cool.
Such a horrible, horrible man, and he got everything that was coming to him. I actually really, unironically, I'm not the hugest fan of Richard Osman, who is the guy that wrote the Thursday Murder Club books. But that film, I love it, and I think it's mainly because of the cast. But it's a fun film, but it's not horror, so let's not linger on it, I guess. But yeah,
did you like it? Did you like it, Andi? Before we get away from it,
it's good fun. Yeah, it's really entertaining,
cool.
and David is correct. It's just a great cast. Watching all these. I can say old. They're not older. They're old. These old British
elder statesmen and women of British acting. I mean, Dame Helen Mirren, and others, you know.
Just Pierce Brosnan in this role is fantastic.
I see. I still don't think of Pierce Brosnan as being old enough to be classed in that group of actors, but he is. It's just time creeping away with me. Like I said, Gothic at 23 years old. Who could have thought?
Man, I'm running with this gimmick.
Remember it like it was yesterday.
Running with this gimmick. I am running with it all the way to the fucking post office.
You're going to be on your deathbed.
You mentioned all these performances, and I wanted to throw one in as well that had I think not only me but everyone who watched it captivated. It was all the Ed Kemper moments in the Mindhunter TV series.
Oh yeah. The those specific interviews, and then when you watch those like lined up with the real one, yeah, it's crazy. It's insane. I think we've kind of hit the end of this. I mean, okay, we could do double feature picks, because I was realizing that after I got through my main spiel. Andi kind of nailed it. It's one of those movies that you talk about favorite moments and everything else, but it doesn't really need a post-mortem. Like, you don't have to really dig into all of it and figure out what it all meant. Which is ironic, given that that's the whole point of this show. But
sure,
yeah, but we don't have to solve any mysteries here.
We don't have to spin it out. We can talk about scumbags on TV and movie screens for 15 minutes to fill time. It's fine.
So yeah, let's if you guys are good with it, we'll move into double feature picks. Andi, kick us off. What do you have this week?
It's very interesting that David mentioned two movies during our discussion that were my potential double feature picks, and the one came up late. Hot Fuzz. This whole conspiracy thing in this small town. But the one that I actually went with is Thanksgiving, for all the reasons that you mentioned. Yeah. This mascot, this local holiday, this modern slasher, and this a continuation of the slasher idea. And yeah, so Thanksgiving and Clown in the Cornfield. And then they're both directed by Eli's.
They are. Very true. You know what? I normally throw it to Dave, but I'm going to keep the consistency going here, because my double feature pick also involves Eli Roth. It's so in a film where there are lots of clowns, and we see the broad effect of a town in some ways, arguably in some corners, becoming a larger clown made up of smaller clowns. I'm going to inverse that and go with a movie from 2014 called Clown. That is about one clown. It's specifically a man becoming a clown, which
the Santa Claus for clowns.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
I remember liking it. It was like a body horror kind of movie. Mm-hmm. It's a guy who I want to say that he is he's not normally a clown. He's like dressing up for a birthday party, maybe his kid's birthday party or something.
I think that's it. Like, he cheaps out and decides he's going to be the clown instead of hiring one. Or something along those lines.
Something along those lines. Yeah, we said the exact same sentence. That's very weird. Especially lined up with a delay, very crazy. Then the costume starts like, he can't get it off. Like, it starts like fusing to him kind of, and he's like turning into. So it becomes this body horror kind of. I don't remember if it fucks his head up too if he starts killing. I don't remember. There's got to be some sort of other conflict in there. In terms of, because I remember it being gory and everything else, but it's also was it the debut of John Watts? It is. I just checked. So John Watts went on to direct 3 Spider-Man films, the Tom Holland movies, and also Cop Car, which I liked. That was the second movie, but yeah, this was his debut. So I'd like to rewatch it. I remember at the time Eli Roth being all over it, producing it, promoting it, whatever. But I did think of that a couple times. What you got, Dave?
I was toying with the idea of just leaning into the gimmick and going with Gothica just to really kind of screw you, but I'm not going to do that, because I need to show some willing to actually do the work. No, I've gone for a movie that we actually talked about not too long ago, and it's going to be no surprise to anyone probably. It is set in a small town. It's a small town that is surrounded by cornfields, and it's got a pitchfork kill in it. It's Dark Harvest from 2023. Also based on a book, which we talked about on the show. So, yeah.
Oh, shit. That's right. I was blanking on what this was. This is the
Sawtooth
one with the
Jack.
pumpkin boy. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen the movie.
Funnily enough, my sister and brother-in-law came over today because they were heading up to London. I took them. Gave them a lift up to the station, and while we were passing the time until it was time to go, I was talking to them about the film that we were talking about today. And I said, it reminds me of another film called Dark Harvest. And I started talking about like the entire plot of Dark Harvest, and I could see that he was like, "Oh wow, that sounds really messed up." And that's kind of where the genesis of the double feature for this week came from. But it's it was either going to be that or Children of the Corn, but this one thematically feels a lot closer than the Stephen King property. So,
I think so.
I've gone for Dark Harvest.
Nice. I like it. All right, listeners, let us know what you thought. If you watched Clown on a Cornfield, if you've read the books, whatever thoughts you may have, feel free to hit us up over on any of our social media pages or on YouTube. Or if you want to send us an email, eerieinternational@gmail.com is the way to do it. I believe we are off next week. Is that correct? Unless Dave's doing something.
And then we're doing a series. Let's announce it.
And then a series. Yeah, I was going to say. Andi, actually, do you happen to well, you probably just remember them off the top of your head. What are we doing for our series?
I have my notes pulled up as well. So cool. As we said, we're taking a break on the first weekend of June, and then we will do a 3-part series on serial killer thrillers from South Korea. And those will be in chronological order: Memories of Murder from 2003, then The Chaser, 2008, and I Saw the Devil from 2010. While I was doing the research for that series, I came up with these 3, and at that point I hadn't been quite aware that we would only have 3 weekends in June, and I mean, it's arbitrary anyway that a series always needs to be done in 1 month. So we need 4 movies or 5 in other months, and I mean that we might have to skip a weekend anyways. Who knows? Maybe we're going into July. But I came up with these 3 movies. I was looking for a 4th, and didn't really find one. And I had already more or less settled on these 3, and then I found a YouTube video with which I didn't watch, but it was a YouTube video specifically on serial killers from South Korea, and it had exactly these 3 movies to talk about.
Oh,
so
perfect.
I felt good enough that that these if someone else had come up with these 3, it's fine that I also come up with these 3, and I'm very excited to do this series. This of course stems from my current dealing with crime, the Dragon 2, the Stieg Larsson movies, and now these Hulda books, and we I can tell you the exact moment when that idea manifested in my head. It was when I watched the trailer for the movie Hope. I think it's called Hope, the South Korean monster movie that they played at Cannes. I sent you the trailer.
Oh shit! Yeah, the stuff in the woods. There's like a creature,
exactly.
Right? Yeah,
and when it said
great.
that it's that director had also done. It's the director from The Wailing. That director had also done The Chaser, and in my mind it immediately pulled up. Okay, I know The Chaser is available on this streaming service for me. I know I Saw the Devil that I wanted to do anyways soon is on this streaming service, and then there's Memories of Murder, which I also wanted to rewatch. I believe I had seen it once, and I know that was available here, and immediately this series formed in my head. And I'm very happy that you guys agreed to do it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this as well. I've only seen I Saw the Devil, and I was a big fan of it when I watched it. And I remember at the time, especially, it hitting me where it's like, damn, this is a fucking dark movie. I was a fan. And then Memories of Murder has been on my list forever. I've owned the Criterion Blu-ray forever now too. Like I've seen, I would say at this point, most of Bong Joon-ho's stuff, but that's like a big blind spot for me is that movie, and everyone seems to love it. And then Chaser's always been on my radar too, and always looked like something I would like. So yeah, I'm very excited for all 3 of these. Have we? I mean, we'll do this every week for them, but is that the only one of those that you've maybe seen, Andi, is Memories of Murder?
I saw The Devil I have seen before.
Okay.
The
all right,
Chaser
cool.
I have not seen.
And what about you, Dave? Have you seen any of these three?
No, no. South Korean
Okay.
cinema is a massive blind spot for me outside of Old Boy, I think, and Squid.
Wailing.
The Wailing, yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, really, it is a bit of a blind spot. So this is going to be
No, all good.
interesting.
It'll be exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you not seen Parasite?
Cool.
If you have not seen Parasite, you should correct that.
Do you know I started to watch Parasite and I didn't get out of the slums with it. So
Oh, man.
probably
You
about
should go
10,
back.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's admittedly like, it's a massive area of blindness that I need to put right. But
It's
this will be
also a
the start
movie
of it.
that once it gets the first little hook in, I think you'll be in. Like I won't spoil anything, but it's a movie that builds and builds and builds. So like once there's some setup at the beginning, but then once it starts, oh man, I could fucking just sing the praises of Parasite for hours.
Yeah.
It is so
Yeah.
good. Like that was one of the highlights for sure of my years watching the Academy Awards when it won that year. It was like one of these rare moments where it was like everything worked out exactly like it should have. Like this was it was such a cool win, especially because like historical, all that kind of stuff absolutely was part of it, but also just the fact that it was like this was a home run of a fucking like generational kind of movie. I don't want to overhype it for you, but big fan. I think Andi is too. So I'm not alone.
It's one of those movies. I believe we watched it on when we took our break during our travel around the world in 2019 and
Yeah.
went home for a couple of months, and we went to see it at the cinema, and it was one of those moments where I was so happy that we got to see it and that we got to see it at a theater and that we did watch it, because it was just as you described it, one of those movies where you felt, okay, this is special. This is something very, very, very special.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you'll dig it, Dave. Whenever you get back to it. Yep. Okay, cool. Excited for the upcoming series. Listeners, as always, hit us up if you have any recommendations or questions or just want to reach out. In the meantime, stay safe out there. We will see you in 2 weeks. Keep watching horror films, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. I did that in the wrong order.
Bye bye.
See you later.